Hi there. I'm Leoya Lewis, and welcome to another edition of New Day, New Beginnings. Now, today we're going to be talking about our aspirations. What are you hoping to do? What do you want to become? They used to ask us that all the time when we were kids. What do you want to be when you grow up? They always, you never know what kids are going to say. But and I'm sure you were asked that question too as a youngster and even as a teenager, because after they ask you, what do you want to be when you grow up, when you start growing up, then they ask you, well, what do you want to do? What do you want to do with yourself? What do you want to work at? Now, back in the day, see, the boys might have said, "Oh, a policeman or a fireman or a soldier or maybe whatever their father was working at the time." And the girls might have said, "Oh, maybe a teacher," because I thought about that, and a nurse or just a good cook like my mom. Kids, you never know what they're going to say. But nowadays, you ask these kids the same question. A lot of things have to do with sports. The boys, football player, they everybody wants to be a football player or a rapper or a singer. And then now basketball, that could be girls or boys. Basketball, soccer, baseball, softball for girls, movies. They want to sing. They want to be an entertainer. I want a TV host or everything they are geared at now is for title and recognition. Title and recognition. And they're just obsessed with that. But it's just like today's lesson, that's why it's titled The Wannabe. What do you want to be? The Wannabe. And yeah, it's a Western. But this lesson will tell you what not to do to get recognition. Now, this takes place in Virginia City because I did see this on Bonanza and I thought it was a good lesson. So, the sheriff in Virginia City, he had to leave town because he had to go to San Francisco because he had to get surgery on his leg because he had been shot during a robbery. So, he needed somebody to fill in as sheriff until he got better. He had asked Ben, but Ben didn't want to do it because people might think, oh, yeah, of course, he would pick him. So they tried to pick somebody, from the town or another rancher. And so Ben said, well, what about Asa? You know, and he was a rancher as well. And so the sheriff said, well, if you go out, he was asking Ben to go out and talk to Asa and see if he wants to do it. I think that is a good choice. So, of course, Ben went out to him and he explained everything, and Asa accepted it. And he said, oh, okay. So he came into town the next day to be sworn in. So when it was done, the judge was telling him, now you're allowed to swear in whoever you choose to be your deputy. So he said, well, what about my hired ranch hand? He's been with me a long time and he's pretty loyal. He's a good employee. And so that was done. So he swore him in as his deputy. Charlie was his name. But once the sheriff was gone, everything seemed to be fine and, quiet and no problem. Day one, day two, day three, and everything was going just easy. That was until two men decided to try to rob the express office. So while they were making their nighttime rounds, the sheriff and his deputy, the deputy saw two horses in the alley. So he went back and said to the sheriff, there's two horses in the alley at the office, the express office. So they came around and they could see a light under the door. So he told the deputy, well, you go around to the front door and I'll stay here and call them out. And when I call them out, you look and stay there and make sure they don't try to go that way. So once they were in place, Asa called out to them, all right, You in there, throw out your guns and come out with your hands up. And in a few minutes, you see them throw out their guns. They did. They threw out their guns. And now come out here where I can see you. And they were, as they were coming out, the first guy that came out, he tripped. And when he tripped, he fell on the ground, but Asa shot him anyway. Now the other guy was getting ready to come out and he saw that and he said, well, what did you do that for? He wasn't going to do nothing. So he said, we threw out the guns just like you asked us to. You didn't even give him a chance. And as he steps out, hands raised, he steps out and the sheriff shot him too. Shot him dead. And when the deputy hears this, he comes running around there and he runs to back there where they are and he just sees the two dead men. And Asa says, I killed him, Charlie. And Charlie, he's still amazed. He said, you sure did. You killed him, Asa. And then Asa's now he's collecting himself. He's realizing what he's done. He says, well, I had to. You know that, don't you? And Charlie said, well, sure you did, Asa, because you're the sheriff. But you could tell by the look on his face, even Asa realized Charlie knew better. So anyway, the next day, Asa sent Charlie to the express office to see what was, being done and what was going on, because now the judge was there and he was questioning the office attendant there. And they were asking a lot of questions. So when Charlie got back to the office, the sheriff's office, Asa says, well, did you tell him? Did you tell him what I said about those two hold up men? And Charlie just said, yeah, I told him something like that. Now Asa's getting nervous. What do you mean something like that? What did you tell? You tell me exactly what you told him. And Charlie said, well, I just said it looked like they were trying to fight. So Asa's like, well, did they believe it? And Charlie's like, I don't know. Now Asa's getting a little antsy. Now he says, well, they better believe it. And you better remember, whenever anybody asks, those two tried to jump us. And we got to stick to that. But just then, the judge that was over there and the group of men were coming into the sheriff's office. And Asa says, oh, Judge Jackson, is anything wrong? And he says, no, the express agent just got a telegram from the home office. And Asa said, oh, about those men? And he said, well, yeah. But they were offering a hearty congratulations to you for a job well done. And you know what? They even authorized me to give you this payment for reward. He said, reward? He said, yeah, it's $200 in gold. Congratulations, Sheriff. Roy really knew what he did when he picked you for this job. And he's shaking his hand and making him feel so wonderful. And the other men, they were smiling and patting him on his back and so forth and so on. And Asa, he just looked at Charlie and started smiling. And he said, yeah, he sure picked the right one. But you know what? This was the beginning of his wannabe. So later that day, Ben and his son Adam and the ranch hand Lou came to town to take care of some business. So Lou took the horses over to the stable. Ben and Adam went into the saloon. And here they find Asa and Charlie and all the men and just drinking and having a good time. And Ben and Adam went over to the table where they were sitting, and Asa looked up and he said, oh, look who's here, the man that talked me into this job. Come on, Ben and Adam, I'll buy you a drink. And Ben said, well, what is this? Some kind of celebration or something? And the saloon girl, she's sitting there and she's, yeah, well, haven't you heard? Asa, he's just about the biggest man in town. He shot it out last night with two men who were trying to rob the express office, and he killed them both. And now Asa, he's sitting there like, well, yeah, I don't like to take no pleasure in killing folk, but they shouldn't have made me have to fight. So, see, now he's going to explain it away. He says, well, you see, it's like I was all for taking them in alive, but well, this one come up and with his gun, and then the other one tried to draw down on me from behind, and well, there was nothing else I could do. Now, all this time, Ben and Adam, they just kind of looking at him like, wow, how did he do all this? And then Asa says, well, do you think I was right? I mean, Ben, what do you think? Yeah, oh, yeah. Ben said, well, sure, Asa. A sheriff has the right to defend himself. And then he says, Adam, what do you think? He said, well, uh, there was nothing else you could do. So he says, well, I'm glad to hear you say that. Well, come on, sit down and have some drinks. So now they're getting ready to have this great big toast because he was such a great hero. So soon he gets up and he says, well, I got to go do some shopping. I'm going to buy me some store-bought clothes. These old rags of mine, they're about worn out. So he leaves. Now, this again, already he's beginning to change. Now, Adam and Ben, they sit there and, I mean, you could see by their faces, they got question marks all over their faces. Adam says he's really enjoying this. He says, do you really think it happened the way he said? And Ben's like, I don't know, but I wasn't there, and neither were you, Adam. But they still both had that questioning look on their faces. Now, if you ever been in that position, you ask somebody something and they're giving you this explanation, but you're kind of really not sure they're telling you the truth. And a lot of times that happens, even with our own kids, when they're little or young, not little, young. Did you do something? No. Well, what happened? I don't know. They don't never know nothing. They ain't do nothing. So, I mean, don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. A lot of adults do the exact same thing. So they're not far behind the kids with lying to you. So meanwhile, the ranch hand, Lou, he had come in to tell them that their wagon wouldn't be ready today, so till the next day. So Ben suggested that you just stay in a hotel overnight in town, and then when the wagon's done tomorrow, you just bring it back to the ranch. So he said, okay. So Lou said, I saw Asa on my way in here, and that badge that got his chest sticking out a mile. And Adam said, well, yeah, it's not just the badge. He's a hero. Didn't you hear? And he said, no. So while they're telling Lou what happened, Asa is coming out the store, and he is dressed, as they say, to the nine, because he had a whole new outfit on from top to bottom, including a hat, all black, hat, shirt, pants, everything. He's just smiling from ear to ear, heading back to the saloon where they were coming from. And just as he was about to go in, Lou and Adam and Ben were coming out. So Lou, he points to Asa and he says, hey, Asa. And then he turns and looks at Ben and Adam, and he says, kind of sense the sarcasm, and he says, well, is there anything wrong with these clothes? Now he's not smiling now. And so Ben kind of breaks it up, and he says, Asa's the new sheriff, and he's got to look the part, Lou. But then Lou started laughing. Now Asa's smile is gone, period. And what's so funny? Lou said, nothing. I was just thinking, what an awful letdown it's going to be when you have to come back down to earth to be plain old Asa Moran. Now, Asa did not, that really set him off. So he just stuck the cigar in his mouth and he just stormed away and went over back to his, to the sheriff's office. So, and the sad part about it was, Adam says to Lou, he says, well, you might just have made yourself number one first class enemy. But so when Asa gives and enters his office, now he's really going to get mad because now the deputy's sitting in his chair with his feet propped up on his desk and sound asleep. He didn't even hear him when he came in. So he walks over and knocks his feet off the desk. And Lou jumps up and, oh, and then he looks, he said, wow, ain't you the dude? Got yourself a new set of store-bought clothes. And he reaches over to feel the shirt. You know how you kind of, oh, and he snatched his hand away. He snatched his hand away. And he said, you got something to say about the way I look too? And he, oh, well, no. He said, no, I think it looks fine. Maybe you better just start calling me Mr. Moran. And Charlie, that's the deputy, he said, what? Now, Asa, come on now. And he cut him off and he said, I said Mr. Moran. So in other words, now I'm above you. I'm your boss. You call me Mr. So as Asa walks away, he's looking out the window and he sees Lou and them coming out the saloon. And he's saying out loud for the deputy to hear. He's saying, yeah, that Lou Palmer working for them Cartwrights is making him as uppity as they are. And Charlie's like, well, you're not having trouble with the Cartwrights, are you? And he just turned and looked at him. He's like, no, not yet. And Charlie's like, well, I wouldn't start no trouble with them. They're a pretty close-knit family. And if you take one of them on, you take them all. Now Ace is mad again at him. He's talking about, well, I'm not afraid of the Cartwrights, or not one of them, not all of them. And you better remember one thing, Charlie. I'm the sheriff in this town, and there's many things a sheriff can do. And Charlie's like, well, what do you mean? And then Asa caught himself and he said, well, I swore on an oath to uphold the law in this town, and that's what I'm going to do. And that means going up against anybody who tries to break the law, whether their name is Cartwright or anything else. And then Charlie, he's thinking, he said, well, you're not expecting them to break the law. They're law-abiding people. And Asa's like, well, they better be, Charlie. They sure better be. But then later that night, Lou, who was staying overnight because of the wagon thing, the hired hand, he was having a beer in the saloon with Vicky. Now, Vicky was the same one that was sitting with Asa at his table in the afternoon when they were, doing all that toasting and everything. So when Asa came in and saw her sitting with him, now he's mad and he goes over to their table and grabs her by the arm and he says, I was hoping you'd be alone. And Vicky said, well, we're just having a beer. It was nice of him to offer. You want to sit down and join us, Asa? Lou wouldn't mind, would you, Lou? And he's like, no, sure, Asa. Sit down. No hard feelings. Let me buy. I was hoping you'd be alone, but if you won't tell him, Vicky, I will. And she's like, what in the world is he talking about? And she said, tell him what? Go home to them Cartwrights, Lou. Now, Vicky's getting married. Now she done stood up from the table. Lou stood up from the table. And Vicky says, well, Asa, I think you're the one that ought to go home. I'll be here tomorrow. And she steps over beside Lou because he's the one that bought her beer. So Asa grabs her by the arm and pulls her over to him. And he says, well, tomorrow's not good enough. Not if you're going to be my girl like you was acting this afternoon. I don't want you associating with the likes of him. And Vicky said, well, where did you get the idea I even wanted to be your girl? So now Lou's standing up and he done interrupted her because he's saying, and what's wrong with me anyhow? Now Lou's a big guy. So Asa says, oh, are you threatening me? And then Asa called him, how they say it, a yellow-livered swamper, or whatever that is. But he says, what? You forgot. You don't have the Cartwrights here to back you up. And Lou said, I don't need the Cartwrights to take care of you. And as he said it, he punched him. And he punched Asa so hard that he went backwards over the table, knocked the table over. But when Asa got up, he pulled his gun. And he said to Lou, he said, okay, you're under arrest for striking an officer. You're going to jail. Now, meanwhile, so he took him and they left the bar, the saloon. Meanwhile, the next day, the Cartwrights are home having breakfast and they hear this like faint knock on the door, like real kind of soft. And they went to the door to see who it was. And here was Lou, beaten to a pulp, bloody all over. His face was a mess. And he had been pistol whipped. He could barely stand up. And they brought him in and they asked him, who did this to you? And he said, Asa. And once they took care of him, they all went into town. But Ben went into the sheriff's office to talk to Asa to see what he was going to say. So, and Asa just looked up and he said, hello, Ben. And Ben came in and slammed the door. He said, what happened, Asa? Why'd you do that to Lou? And he's talking about, do what? You beat him near to death. He said, well, what are you talking about near to death? He was resisting arrest and I had to take him in. And Ben said, well, what did he do against the law? And Asa said, he tried to kill me. That is against the law, isn't it? And Ben said, well, that isn't the way Lou said it. I don't care what he said, Asa said. He's a friend of yours. But you told me that a lawman's got the right to defend himself. And that's exactly what I was doing. Now, you trying to tell me I can't defend myself because they're a friend of yours? And Ben said, no, but I'm telling you that you don't have the right to use that badge to pistol whip a man. And Asa, now he's mad. He done jumped up out his chair. Now you listen to me, Ben Cartwright. This badge, here we go, gives me the right to do anything I want. Do we hear that now in our own lives? And Ben said, yes, anything within the law. And Asa just sat down and said, yeah, that's right. Now, are we not seeing this in our everyday lives? Bullying, the badge gives me the right. What do we hear on the news? I'm this person, I'm that person. That gives me the right. So anyway, Ben leaves and goes to see the judge to tell him what happened. And he tells him, Lou came to my door with his face half bashed in, and I believe what he told me. And the judge says, well, I got a written report here from Asa saying that Lou was wild and disorderly and actively resisting arrest. And because he worked for you, he sent him home instead of arresting him and putting him in jail. And Ben's like, yeah, he sent him home all right, half dead. I think Asa, this is Ben still talking, I think Asa should be released until we have a complete investigation. How many investigations we got going on? But the judge's like, well, I don't know if that's a good idea because then it would look like we're having an official criticism of his action. And Ben said, well, we are. He said, but I don't have any proof of that. So at the same time, Adam's over there talking to Charlie, the deputy in the saloon, asking him what happened the night of the shooting. And so Adam's like, so you were right in the middle of all that? And Charlie's like, well, I wasn't right in the middle, but I could see it all pretty good enough. So Adam said, well, if you could see it, but you let Asa do all the shooting, well, why didn't you help him out? Isn't that what deputies are for? And Charlie's like, well, I didn't expect no shooting. I mean, it just happened so fast. And Adam said, well, you were stopping two men from robbing the express office, and you didn't think you would have to shoot? And Charlie's like, well, sure I did, but Mr. Moran, he yelled in and told them to throw their guns down, and they did that. And then he told them to come out. And Adam's like, wait, so they came out with their hands up? And Charlie said, well, they was trying to fight us. I mean, that's how come he shot him. Because now he's trying to remember what he told him to say. And Adam said, but how could they shoot him when they didn't have no guns? And Charlie said, well, the first one came out and he tripped, and then it looked like he was going after the gun, and it all happened so fast. Oh, you're just getting me so mixed up. And just then Asa walks up, and Asa says, and now what are you so mixed up about, Charlie? And Adam said, about two men that at the express office, about how you shot two men who had no guns. That sounds a little different from what you told us. And Charlie said, I told you, Adam, it wasn't that way. And Adam said, well, I think Judge Jackson would like to hear just how it was. And I think he'd like to hear about Lou Palmer, too. Now, Asa's standing behind Adam's chair. So he pulls out his gun and hits Adam over the head and knocks him unconscious at the table. You ain't saying nothing to nobody. So Charlie's like, you hit him pretty hard. And he said, yeah, well, let's take him over to jail. So they each grab him one under each arm and take him out like he's drunk and passed out. And Vicky sees him and he says, these Cartwrights, they just can't hold their liquor. But she looked like something was just not right. So they put him in the cell. Charlie said, well, I'll get the key and lock it. No, leave it unlocked. But then he'll escape. He says, I know. And then when he escapes, he'll be shot for trying to escape. We got to keep this quiet, Charlie. And he just started laughing, but Charlie was getting scared. Now, Ben, Hoss, and Joe are heading for the jail because Ben says, I'm going to talk to Asa and see what's going on. So Ben said, I want to go back and see my son, because he had put him in jail. He says, I can't let you do that, Ben. And he's like, what do you mean? He's my son. And he grabbed for the keys on the desk, and Asa grabbed them from him. And he says, look, you better get out of here before you get yourself in trouble. He said, well, all right, I'll pay the bail. There ain't no bail for hostile prisoners. So he said, well, I heard that he was hit over the head and he's hurt. Oh, no, he's fine. He's all right. Good, then I'll go get the doctor and bring him here. No, nobody can see him until I say so. So Ben got mad and he turned around and punched Charlie and then started scrapping with him. And then, but Charlie acting back, he asked him, well, why are you doing this? Just because I'm just trying to do my job. He says he was obstructing justice and disturbing the peace. And he said, well, all right. So when he acts like he's getting ready to leave, but he starts fighting with Charlie and him. And then the boys hear the noise outside, and Charlie's like, don't kill him, Asa, because he had already pulled his gun. So they had the scuffle, but the boys came in with their guns drawn, and Joe's like, drop those guns, drop them, and move over there. I got to go check on Adam. But he sees Ben laying on the floor, so he goes to help Ben up, and then they start fighting. They beat up Charlie and Asa, take, what's his name, their brother out of jail, and Asa wakes up and says, you taking them out of here? I'm going to be after you with everybody in town. But the judge comes into the office. He says, well, I hear it's all over town that you arrested Adam. And he's telling the judge, I was performing my duty. And the judge said, well, did it ever occur to you that they might be worried? He said, well, that's no excuse. I didn't ask for this job. And now I got to do it the way I see fit. So he says, I'm going to go after them. But the judge says, all right, but I'm going with you to avoid any more violence. So to make a long story short, they went looking for Ben and the boys. So Ben said, well, why don't you um, how do I say, tell these men what you told Adam. So once they got done, Asa kept telling Charlie, shut up, because Charlie was getting it all mixed up. But at any rate, he went to pull his gun on Ben, and Ben shot Asa. So all Asa is just, uh, you know, he's at his wit's end. There's just nothing else he could do. And Ben was upset because he was saying, I've never shot at a badge before. And the judge said, you didn't shoot at the badge, you just shot at the man. Asa did everything wrong to get the title, the power, and the recognition. He became a murderer, a liar, a bully, and a deceiver. So, what we saw here today was somebody trying to fake it until they could make it. So, my question to you is, what do you want to be? I want to be just the opposite of everything that Asa was. And my closing words for today are, fake people don't surprise me anymore, but loyal people do. And until next week, I'm Lelia Lewis. Thanks for joining me.